Monday to you. Hope you had a great weekend. Thanks for joining Sports4CLE. I'm Dave Bacon. Plenty of Browns football to talk about. Cut down day for all the NFL teams tomorrow at 4 o'clock. So right about this time tomorrow, each and every one of the NFL teams have to be down to their 53-man roster limits. We'll be joined a little later by Ellis Williams, Browns beat reporter for cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer. We will also be joined by Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Browns have today off. Kevin Stefanski said there would be some cuts that would happen today before they have to get to that 53-man roster limit by 4 o'clock tomorrow. Browns will practice tomorrow. They'll practice Wednesday and Thursday. League-mandated days off Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then they go full go for Kansas City prep Monday. Kevin Stefanski admitted these will be some tough decisions that Andrew Berry has to make.
I think it's really productive conversations that have been going on really throughout training camp. We've kind of met weekly and taken the pulse of different people and talk through things. And then Andrew, ultimately, he makes decisions and he has a lot to consider in those decisions, but I think he does a great job of listening to make sure that he can make some informed decisions.
How important is it for the coaches to feel like they are listened to?
Yeah, I think it's like anything else in any business. You want to believe that you have a voice in this, and our coaches do. They spend every waking minute with the players in these meeting rooms out on the field. So the coaches have great insight into the players. And then, like I mentioned, though, the coaches also understand that it's Andrew's decision. And I think he takes in all the information and will make the decision that's right for the Cleveland Browns.
Let's welcome in Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com, Mary Kay Cabot. And Mary Kay, there won't be many big names or any surprises, but there will be plenty of tough decisions as you get down to that 53-man roster. The last few guys that the Browns cut will likely end up on other rosters. That's how good this roster is.
Yeah, some of the guys that will be let go can play some darn football, and they will. So, yeah, there are some named guys that I think will probably end up somewhere else, but not any real big surprises. I mean, you might see Kadarius Hodge go somewhere. You might see a Dearness Johnson. There are a couple of guys that we've sort of heard of. We've seen play a little bit, but you're not going to see the Rashard Higgins walk out the door. You're not going to see even the Demetric Feltons or anybody like that. All of the Browns draft picks will make this football team from this year really end last year too.
When you look at it, some of those last few roster spots, Kadarius Hodge, JoJo Natson, Dearness Johnson, those are guys that were special teams guys that could also be effective as either a wide receiver or a running back. What do you think kind of separates them when you look at them, and what makes them one stay and one or two have to go?
Well, those are the decisions that they're going to have to make. They have to figure out, do they want to keep 6 receivers? And if they do keep 6 receivers, then you sort of have to choose between a Kadarius Hodge and a JoJo Natson. But Demetric Felton, your 6th-round pick from this year, can serve that 6th receiver role. So you don't necessarily need to keep a traditional 6th receiver. If you do, when I did my 53, I put JoJo Natson on there ahead of Kadarius Hodge because I think Davion Davis, when he comes back from his suspension, might end up going to the practice squad, but he's somebody that can give you more of what a Kadarius Hodge can do. A JoJo Natson, in my mind, really is a dynamic returner and brings a different element to the game. So I would be trying to trade Kadarius Hodge because they have some other Kadarius Hodges on the roster. They've got guys that can do what he can do. He also costs $2.1 million. That's a lot of money for a receiver that might not get on the field very much. So there are so many different ways that you could go about this, and these are the decisions that they're still making right now as we speak.
And again, there are some reports that a couple of guys have been let go, and we're going to hold off until a little later to talk about guys that are reportedly cut. What about Dearness Johnson? That's a guy, when he was given the opportunity last year, he ran the ball pretty effectively. And when they used him in preseason, he ran the ball pretty effectively. Is there I would think he's a guy that can play in the NFL. He certainly has looked like that whenever they've given him the football.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, he does a really, really nice job, and they do like him, and he can play on some special teams. So he's somebody that you really don't want to let walk out the door, and maybe they won't. But if you have to trim somewhere, running back is a spot that you might be able to go with one less, and therefore you might not be able to afford to keep Dearness Johnson. Why not? Because once again, you have Demetric Felton, who can be a running back for you, can be a returner, and can be a receiver. But in terms of Dearness Johnson, I would think he's another guy that, maybe you could try to get a late round pick for him. Or, if not, I would expect to see him on another roster.
Let's turn our attention to the kicking game. So Chase McLaughlin, a 56-yard field goal, hit the crossbar, almost went up and over, and then he comes back and it's like the extra point kind of went off away. Does Chase McLaughlin have this kicking gig locked up, or do you think the Browns are kind of keeping an eye for maybe a veteran that sneaks through on another roster late in the waiver process?
You know what? They'll keep their eyes peeled, and if a better kicker comes along, they wouldn't hesitate to sign him. It's not like they're wed to Chase McLaughlin. I mean, he's good enough, but it's not somebody that they have their heart set on having around here for a long, long time. So if somebody better comes along over the next couple of days, I suppose there is a chance that they could upgrade. If not, they'll let him start the season, see if he can handle the job. And there is also a chance, keep this in the back of your mind, that Cody Parkey could end up back here. They reached an injury settlement with him, and he has to stay out for 3 weeks beyond the end of the settlement. So that could bring him back somewhere, I think, in the second quarter of the season. And, it's just something to keep an eye on.
All right, let's take a look at this. So Odell Beckham Jr. did not play in the preseason game. He was warming up and doing the things that Odell Beckham Jr. always does. This one is just ridiculous that's a backhanded grab with one hand running down the sidelines. Mary Kay, you look at this, and I am never ceased to amaze at the strength of his hands and the hand-eye coordination and all that goes in to somebody making a catch like that. That was warming up yesterday in Atlanta.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, just Odell and Jarvis, they work so hard on their craft. They have the best hands that you could ever possibly imagine. I mean, and they worked so hard on the jugs. They do so many things to be able to make a catch like that. It doesn't just come naturally. I mean, they absolutely work and work and work at it. And Odell is a freak of nature. He's worked incredibly hard to come back. It's amazing where he's at this point. I think he's ready to go in Kansas City, but I also think that they will be careful with him, and they'll try to watch him a little bit and make sure that he's not doing too much, overdoing it, because the goal is to keep him around for the entire season.
And you know what? I think they've done that very nicely with guys who have been banged up or any type of injuries. They've always had their eye on, regular season, 17 games. Let's not try to win everything in August.
Absolutely. And they did a really nice job of that throughout training camp. But we looked over there, and there you see Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney on the sidelines for a long time. Denzel Ward, Odell was on ice. Nick Chubb in the early going didn't do a whole lot. So they really paced these guys to get them to the starting blocks. And now they want to get them to the finish line as well. So in addition to getting them to Kansas City, now they know that it's a marathon to get all the way through to what they hope is the Super Bowl. So they're going to have to work hard at that.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com, and I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we'll hear from Kevin Stefanski talking about Baker Mayfield. We'll also talk about how Baker looked in his first preseason action. A couple series last night. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Sports4CLE continues. We continue talking Browns football. So Baker Mayfield played 2 series, his first action of the preseason last night against the Atlanta Falcons. Kevin Stefanski talked about if there was any sign of how defenses might defend Baker Mayfield this year.
I mean, obviously the defense is always going to try and get their hands on the ball when they stop the rush for whatever reason. You'll see that from different teams. I don't know that that's a thing that teams are going to try to do. I would tell you when they're trying to bat the passes down, they're not rushing. They've stopped the rush oftentimes, which is a good thing. So we'll see. It's something we coach as well. When you feel like the quarterback has hit his back foot and the ball's coming out, and you're not at the quarterback to get your hands up. So those are the type of things that are really good for Baker and Case to feel. Because you got to sometimes slide one spot or the other, or change your arm angle, those type of things to complete a pass.
And the touchdown to Cadero was obviously one of those situations. How good of a throw was that to be able to lift that ball over Walker like that?
Yeah, I thought it was a really good throw. I thought his technique, some of the nuances that he's putting into his technique, if you will, he's really grown in some of the things that he's doing out there.
Let's welcome back in Mary Kay Cabot, who asked that question, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Mary Kay, couple of passes batted down to the line of scrimmage, and I think Kevin Stefanski said that's not really a reason to be concerned. Given that it was his first preseason game, that has a lot to do with timing as much as anything else, the timing with the receivers.
Yes, but you know what? I do think that there will be some good data in the early going. The first few weeks, Baker and Kevin Stefanski and Alex Van Pelt will see what teams are going to try to take away from Baker, what he did well last year. And that's the name of the game in football. You try to look at what the other team does really well and take it away. And we know some of the things that Baker Mayfield does well. He's amazing at play action, the bootlegs, the rollouts. He was 3rd in the NFL list last year, rolling out 80 times, and most of those to the left side. So if they start to take some of those things away this year, or try to figure out some ways to defend him, then he's going to have to beat those things. And I don't think that's going to be a problem because he's got so many places to go with the football.
How impressed were you with the 2 series that he had? I know that the first one was a little, rusty, but there were still a number of plays. That offense looked like it was pretty well oiled, and you didn't have Nick Chubb, and you didn't have Jarvis Landry, and you didn't have Odell Beckham Jr., and you didn't have your center, J.C. Tretter, and they still were moving the ball pretty regularly in the first 2 series.
Yeah, I mean, the first series, it did not go the way that they wanted it to. 2 for 6, a couple of drops, a couple of batted passes. And it started out with a holding call. You never want to start out with a holding call and find yourself in 1st and 20 on your second play of the game. So that was, unfortunate. But they rebounded. I mean, Baker Mayfield came out on that second drive and obviously did a really nice job. 4 for 4, 70 yards. the really, really nice touchdown pass, which again, Kevin Stefanski was talking about the nuances of now they can build on what he was able to do last year. So when a guy gets his hands up in his face like that, do you slide to the left? Do you slide to the right? Do you lift it over him? So these are just some of the ways that he's adding to his game and becoming a more mature quarterback.
What has stood out about him in camp and last night? What are the main differences that you've seen from Baker Mayfield and heard from him in this preseason and training camp?
Confidence, playing faster, knowing where to go with the ball, directing traffic, telling receivers, what might have gone a little bit better on the previous play, being able to sort of own the offense and direct traffic and command how this is going to go. And the other thing is, I think he's so in charge now that I don't think he's going to have voices in his head that tell him, hey, you got to get this guy the ball, or you got to get that guy the ball. I think he's just going to go to the open man, go through his progressions, and do the right thing with the football.
Yeah, it really looks second nature to him, where he might have been thinking a little bit last year. He is just reacting and doing everything that you want a franchise quarterback to do. Let's turn our attention to the offensive line. So all of the regulars except J.C. Tretter played in that preseason game last night. What did you think of the line, and what are some of the good things you saw with the offensive line?
Well, it's just such a good offensive line. I mean, they do so many things well. They block well, they pass block, they run block. You don't want to see a false start from Jed. That was a little mental error. You don't want to see things like that. So he'll have to kind of clean that up a little bit and continue to do that. But for the most part, it was a nice performance by the offensive line, and you really would expect Jed Wills to take his game up to a new level this year, and I think he will.
All right, before we take one more break, what are areas of concern as you get ready for Kansas City? Now, they got a couple of days this week where they'll look towards Kansas City. They want to clean up some things before that, and then it's full go Monday, a week from today, with the Chiefs coming up a week from Sunday. What are areas of concern for that game with the Chiefs?
I think it's just a matter of trying to get some guys get back healthy and see who's going to be ready to play. I mean, that's the biggest thing. I mean, will Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah make it back this week, be able to put a helmet on? Maybe you don't put the helmet on for these 3 practices and let him heal up all the way till next Monday, so you don't run the risk of reopening that gash with the stitches in it. So that's a decision that will have to be made along with the medical staff. Then do you put Grant Delpit back out there this week? Do you put Greedy back out there at all? How much do you play Odell Beckham Jr. coming off of his torn ACL? Do you give him some work a little bit more work in team? So these are some of the decisions that you want to make in these 3 practices.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com, and I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out on the other side of the break. We'll talk a little bit about Malik McDowell and also some of the rookies and what we have seen from them in training camp and this preseason. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. Sports4CLE continues. We continue talking Browns football with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. One guy who the Browns liked and who has really showed up a little bit, Malik McDowell. Take a listen to Kevin Stefanski on Malik McDowell.
Real excited for what Malik was able to do this preseason, and I really go back to when he first got here in rookie minicamp and first learning our techniques and our schemes and those type of things. And then you see a player gradually getting better. So he did have some moments last night, also very physical at the point of attack.
Let's welcome back in Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. Mary Kay, what have you seen from Malik McDowell, and how impressive is it that the Browns went out and found a guy who hadn't played in 4 years, and he was productive?
Well, you know what? He's gotten better. Every single time I look out and watch Malik McDowell practice, he keeps getting better and better. He was hampered a little bit by hamstring in the offseason workouts, the OTAs and things like that. But he's back healthy now, and he's coming up that learning curve very quickly. He's getting good coaching from Chris Kiffin, and he's getting good mentoring from guys like Malik Jackson. And he's doing a nice job. He's knocking off the rust. He's putting the time in, putting the work in, and he's a big, big man. He's 6'6", 295, takes up a lot of space in there inside, and I think he'll be a part of that tackle rotation pretty early on.
Yeah, there were a couple of plays yesterday where he took the center and backed him up about 4 or 5. I mean, it looked like something from the movie The Blind Side, because he just walked an NFL center back 5-6 yards. All right, what did you see from the rookies? And let's specifically some of the early round picks: Greg Newsome, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, Anthony Schwartz, and then we'll kind of transition into the later round picks. But those 3 guys that the Browns took really early, what did you see from them?
Well, you know, really good, smart football players. First of all, Greg Newsome, I mean, he's going to be the starting cornerback opposite Denzel Ward. There's no question about that. So it's time to ramp him up and get him ready to face the likes of Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Mecole Hardman, and those guys. He's going to be your guy. So there will be a few times where he makes mistakes. He's only played 20 games in college, including 6 last year in his final year at Northwestern. So he's not a, proven veteran. I mean, this is a work in progress, but I think he's going to be really good. He's smart. He works really hard on his craft. They'll go after him a little bit, but he'll have some safety help over the top. And I think he'll do a nice job and get better as the season goes along. JOK, they got to get him back out there. He should be starting in this game, but it's going to be dependent on when he can get back out there, get that helmet back on, and start practicing again. You don't want to keep his talent off the field. He's so versatile, good closing speed, team's best blitzer. Anthony Schwartz gets back out and gets some work done last week in 11-on-11s, plays in his first preseason game on Sunday night in Atlanta, did a nice job, and his hands are getting better and better by the week, which is really good because you really want to be able to use that 4.26 speed that he has.
Yeah, he has got some explosion that is elite. I mean, you saw him catch in his first couple steps. It's like, wow, not many people can get headed where they want to go as quickly as he can. And you're right, that's a huge weapon. All right, now let's focus on some of the late round guys. So Demetric Felton, we've talked about him. Donovan Peoples-Jones, those are 2 6th-round picks the last 2 seasons. Let's throw Richard LeCounte in there, a guy that was a 5th-round pick this year. How are the Browns finding guys this late in the draft that look like they can play in the NFL?
Yeah, I wrote a column about that today. Here's what we're finding out about Andrew Berry and his staff. Not only are they finding players in the 1st and 2nd rounds, but they are coming up with gems in the late rounds, guys that are going to contribute this year, and probably some of them will become starters as they go down the road. If you can get a starter in the 6th round, that's pretty darn good, or the 5th round, and it looks like they're on their way to finding some really, really good football players in those later rounds. Hard to do, but they are accomplishing it, and that's a testament to the strength and the quality of the personnel staff. So good for them for that, because once again, Donovan Peoples-Jones in the 6th round last year, Demetric Felton last year. Most teams will take that any day of the week.
Let me ask you this, because I've had a theory on that. I think teams that really know what qualities they're looking for at given position groups find those, because the Ravens seem to do it, the Steelers seem to do it. Good organizations that know this is what our profile is seem to be able to find those draft steals later in the draft.
Yes, absolutely. And that's where you earn your money if you're a personnel department. That is where you absolutely, you make your hay right there. And in addition to that, I have to tweet something here real quick. 1 second.
That's okay.
I just have to do this. Can you just talk for a minute, David, while I do
Sure.
this?
So Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter, is out on social media tweeting this out. She'll join us back here in a second. And we were talking about the free agent signings that the Browns have had is where we're going to go. But the late round picks that Andrew Berry's hit on the last 2 years have been impressive, and it's because the Browns now have a profile, personnel-wise, of what they're looking for at different positions. That enables you to do that. So the question for Mary Kay Cabot. Mary Kay, who of the free agents that the Browns have signed during this offseason, who has kind of stood out? Which of the guys that they've brought in to try to bolster free agent-wise have been impressive to you?
Well, there are a number of guys. I would say that from a free agent standpoint, Jadeveon Clowney has been amazing. John Johnson III has been absolutely tremendous, and Troy Hill has been really good. Tack McKinley, we're just starting to see him come back into the fold, but these guys should all make a big contribution this year. Malik Jackson, he's been terrific at defensive tackle. So some of these guys are going to come in, they're going to start right away, and they're going to be part of a defense that is going to be so much better than it was last year. And I think they're going to give these Kansas City Chiefs a big run for their money.
All right, before we let you go, how concerning is it to you that the defense, because different guys have been banged up at different points in time, Myles Garrett and Clowney haven't practiced a lot. And again, I get it. You've had Denzel Ward and Newsom, who's missed some time, Greedy Williams, Delpit. How concerning is it that you haven't had all 11 of those guys that are going to comprise the starting defense this year with so many new guys? You haven't had them on the field or even on the practice field that much to get everything ironed out and communication-wise.
Well, you know what? Yes, I really think that it will help them that they've got these 3 bonus days here, and they really started to get that defense back together last week. So I think they'll continue to get all those guys out there. What we don't know is, will they have JOK, Greedy, and Grant Delpit next week? It would really help if they could get those guys out there too. But if not, most of the starting defensive guys were starting to be out there last week, and it was looking pretty darn good. I mean, when you look up front, you've got Myles on one side, Jadeveon on the other, Andrew, Malik in the middle, and then you go back and you've got Anthony Walker, and then they're hoping to have JOK in there, and you've got Denzel, Greg Newsom, John Johnson, Ronnie Harrison. That's a lot to deal with for the Kansas City Chiefs and the other teams coming up right after them.
All right, the only cut that we have heard that has been somewhat confirmed is Curtis Weaver. Again, not a surprise. It's a guy that was injured, and the Browns kind of took a chance on him, and clearly, that could be a guy they bring back as a practice squad guy. But Curtis Weaver reportedly among one of the early cuts.
Yeah, I can confirm Curtis Weaver, Kyle Lauletta, Sheldrick Redwine, and then I just tweeted while I asked you to talk there for a minute, which I'm sorry about that, but I got a tip that they released JoJo Natson. So that's a definite. So that's another thing. So we know of 4 so far, and there will be more today as the day goes along.
All right, Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Mary Kay, appreciate it. I know you're busy, so thanks for carving out some time. Remember, you can read her in the pages of the Plain Dealer and on cleveland.com. Mary Kay Cabot, thanks for your time.
Sure, thanks for having me.
All right, Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter. So the cuts: Curtis Weaver, Kyle Lauletta, Sheldrick Redwine, and the Browns also released JoJo Natson. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, Ellis Williams, Browns beat reporter for cleveland.com, and the Plain Dealer will join us. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions, lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery, partners in education, where stars shine. Sports4CLE continues. We continue talking Browns football, and we welcome in Ellis Williams, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Ellis, appreciate the time. All right, let's get right to it. What'd you see of Baker Mayfield last night? What do you expect from him this year?
I saw a quarterback ready to take hold and lead a potential top 5, top 3, maybe best offense in football. It was a drive, 2 of them, where you saw the Browns move the ball efficiently after the air on the ground. And Baker is now in a situation where he has, like Kevin Stefanski said on the broadcast, he knows the bones of the offense. He can speak the language and advance it. When you rewatch those 2 drives, you see multiple motions. You see checks he's making. You see on actually the touchdown throw, him to make a fake check to the right, acting like they're going to run right. You got to make sure you have this block, and all he does is boot left and drop a beautiful ball over a defender and then into Cordell Hodges' outstretched hands. It was an amazing couple of plays, and it just reaffirms what I've thought about this Browns offense going into the year. They're going to be top 5. They're flirting with top 3, and this could be the best offense in football come week 8 and then through the eventual playoff run they're hoping.
Is it as apparent to you as it was to me that, boy, he's much more comfortable, and that's what you would expect when he finally gets year 2 with the same personnel and the same system, with the same offensive coordinator and the same head coach?
Yeah, and it's also about who those coaches are. Kevin Stefanski and Alex Van Pelt, they have drilled and drilled and drilled his footwork, his education, and they've reaffirmed his belief both in his feet, his eyes, and then thirdly, honestly, his protection. And once you're able to shed that doubt of the players in front of you maybe not being able to hold up, the game changes for a quarterback. And that's exactly what you saw last night. A guy knowing he's not going to get hit, knowing he's going to have the time to throw some fadeaway balls and just distribute the football wherever he likes, because he's got 5 solid starters up there. And again, I'll keep saying it's the best offensive line in football.
The other thing is no Odell Beckham Jr., no Nick Chubb, no Jarvis Landry, and still this offense looked really sharp. How high is the ceiling when you get those guys incorporated with this line, and then you still have the other pieces that were playing really well?
I completely agree. And I think this offense is going to have to walk before they can jog, and then jog before they can run, meaning sprinkling Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry in is going to take time when you consider pairing him with Anthony Schwartz or Donovan Peoples-Jones, Kareem Hunt on the field. Where does Dimitri Felton play a role in this? Kevin Stefanski has so many options at his disposal that, like the old Saints teams when they would, platoon Jimmy Graham and Marquise Colston and Reggie Bush, or that kind of combo is out there. That Kevin's going to, I think, spend the month of September figuring out what is best, what units, what groupings are best, what plays are best for those specific players who haven't played yet, like you're mentioning, Odell Beckham Jr. And then once they get October, November, they're going to hit the top 3, maybe the best offense in football. But I think it's going to take a little time, and not in a way where anyone's really going to notice that they're not an excellent offense. It's just that true ceiling they're not going to be able to hit until October, early November.
So when you look at Dimitri Felton and Anthony Schwartz, we've seen Felton all 3 of the games. You saw Schwartz last night, and there were some eye-opening things that he did. Do both of them have a role in this offense?
Yeah, let's start with Anthony. I think the rookie receiver, running 4.26 speed is going to have a role immediately, and it won't be expansive. It's probably not going to be more than 10, 12 plays per game, but he provides the type of both lateral and vertical stretch that Kevin Stefanski wants to put on a defense, whether you can, flirt the jet sweep to him, maybe even give it to him. We already saw Baker target him on an outside vertical and drawing a pass interference. Those are all free yards, right? So Anthony's going to have an opportunity just because of his specific skill set. Of course, the team cutting JoJo Natson recently, as cleveland.com reported, that really opens the door for Anthony to have that role that they hope Natson would have had a year ago, on top of Schwartz just being a more complete receiver. And then as for Felton, I'd say that it's going to take time for him just because he won't be needed right away. This front backfield is going to be dominated by Nick Chubb or Kareem Hunt. And maybe you bring Felton in to toy with the defense, make them think a little more than they should, or find a mismatch you like. But, Kareem Hunt really is Demetric Felton, just 30 pounds more, it's like, right, and a league rushing winner already. So they're loaded back there, and Felton will have an opportunity later, but I see Schwartz as a guy both because of his skill set and maybe just for injury availability. He's going to be out there right away.
So do you think Felton becomes the main return guy potentially then? Is that because, they set him out there from the get-go last night, and that to me said, all right, if you're doing that, he's going to be the guy you put back and get the ball in his hands on special teams.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked me that. And he looked good, right? I saw some real nice wiggles, some tough running. Sometimes we don't consider how much just playmaking and sturdy, being able to being difficult to tackle style of running is actually more suitable for returning rather than just blazing straight line speed. It's not often that you see a crease and you just take it and you're gone, right? So for Felton to be able to break tackles and then keep challenging the levels of the special teams unit, I thought he looked impressive back there and probably is going to take that job.
All right, before we take a quick break, what areas are you most concerned about as you get ready for Kansas City in Week 1?
Yeah, this team is a little thin at tight end if we can just keep it with the offense, and I'll say something about the defense. One injury, and now you're looking at a team that relies on two guys, and then you'd only have two guys. And that's a room where I would wonder how it's going to shape up, if they're keeping four, if they're going to try and bring somebody in. It's nothing to worry about, but it is one of those things when a team is this stacked, you have to think about what could go wrong. Defensively, we got to see what these corners can do. Kansas City, Week 1, September 12th, they're going to be throwing the football. We know what Denzel Ward is. We're going to see a rookie, Greg Newsome, out there getting an NFL debut in the regular season, going up against Patrick Mahomes, the best quarterback in football. And then just the depth in general. Can these guys hold up? Troy Hill's going to get his first chance. It's a lot of new pieces, potentially 8 new starters, 9 new starters. And just because they're names doesn't mean they have gelled well yet. I'm confident they will, but that's what we have to see.
You concerned that they haven't gotten a lot of time on the field, even in camp together? That the whole communication thing, I guess, is what I'm getting at.
For sure. And like bringing Odell back to the offense, I think Browns fans need to be patient with Joe Woods and allow him to train these 3 safeties in real time. There's a report out now that perhaps Grant Delpit will be ready for Week 1. Who knows? I just would really urge patience and then allow Joe Woods to experiment, much like Kevin Stefanski will with the offense, what this unit can be, and then we'll actually see their true colors come mid-October and into November.
Ellis Williams, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com, and I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we'll talk a little bit more about Anthony Schwartz. We'll also find out who Ellis thought was the biggest surprise at training camp. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine. Too late at night. But feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
We continue talking Browns football with Ellis Williams, Browns beat reporter from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Kevin Stefanski talked about third-round pick Anthony Schwartz and his first preseason action last night.
Yeah, that was good, Nate, that we could get him out there. Coming back, he worked hard in rehab, slowly worked his way into individual and team periods. And then to get out there, that was kind of our plan, get him around 15 to 20 snaps, get the game speed of the thing. We got the ball in his hands. He drew a DPI early in the ball game. So really good to see him out there, and then something that we can hopefully grow upon.
Is that confidence that he can be a factor for you in week one?
Yeah, I think all those type of things, Nate, remain to be seen. I just think it's really good for a rookie, a young player, to get out there in the game setting and make some plays. I think that was it's a good part of the progression.
And Ellis, when you get the ball in his hands, it was really interesting to see the burst. I mean, you could just see it. When they got the ball in his hands, I'm like, man, I expect something big to happen.
Yeah, and that's the goal of what this offense and specifically Andrew Berry was trying to do in bringing in explosive playmakers. This was a team that desperately needed to be faster in Kansas City. They weren't, and it cost them. And teams had the book on them. And now you have an offense that already has proven that it can be methodical. It can be efficient. It can hit you short. It can run the football. It can be intermediate. And now what's the next level? You need the home run. You need explosives. And that's exactly what he provides.
All right, let's turn our attention. Biggest surprises of training camp, guys that really opened your eyes. Take as many of them as you want. Biggest surprises from training camp and preseason.
Yeah, well, we got to start with Donovan Peoples-Jones. This is a young man who really blew the competition away. His process or his challenging for the wide receiver 3 spot was really over after the first week, coupled with Rashard Higgins hurting his ankle, of course. But DPJ just won the day each and every day out there. He was making explosive catches, high-pointing footballs, one-handed grabs, assignment sound, calm demeanor, about his business each day. He showed up to Berea on a business mission, and it paid off for the young man. He'll be the wide receiver 3 on this football team, and it's probably in line to succeed Odell or Jarvis, or perhaps both someday soon. Let's go to Greg Newsome next. He's going to start in Kansas City, as I already said, and for a first-round rookie to go out there and battle the likes of Jarvis Landry and, Odell to a very small degree, but, even the likes of Donovan Peoples-Jones, like I just said, this is a stacked receiver room, and Greg Newsome was out there each day competing. Then he goes to Jacksonville and takes on a receiver in Marvin Jones, who's a consummate pro. And, Marvin got his way with him a few times, but if he comes down with that one interception, sort of a jump ball situation, we're talking about it very differently. We've already mentioned Demetric Felton. This guy kind of was on the bubble and came out of nowhere to a degree and showed that he could be both a receiver and running back, just like he was in college. And now Kevin Stefanski seems to have a nice new toy at his dispensal. The whole depth on the D-line in general, they completely remade that room, having Sheldon Richardson and Larry Ogunjobi walk. And now you bring in Malik Jackson, Andrew Billings, Sheldon Days look good. This is a group that, and of course, Jordan Elliott, Tommy Togiai, the younger guys there. This is a group that has gone from a lot of question marks to just a lot of quality depth. So there's pleasant surprises everywhere. And then I'll give one more. John Johnson has been, as advertised from the sticker price, a leader in the locker room, a voice on the field, a complete athlete near the football, going deep. Browns fans are going to be really excited to see him play, and he's going to cover up for a lot of the mistakes that were happening last year.
All right, you mentioned that those D tackles, and Malik Jackson and Elliott. And how excited are you to see those guys when both Jadeveon Clowney and Myles Garrett line up on the other side? Keep in mind, we haven't had those ends with those tackles. I mean, it could be a handful up front.
No, it's going to be a handful. It's going to be a problem for starting in Kansas City, right? And it's really reassuring for the cornerbacks, especially specifically Greg Newsome, being someone who knows that his pass rush is going to get there, and he probably only needs to hold on for 2.6, 2.7 seconds. and somebody's going to be there, whether it's through the A and B gap, creating internal pressure from the nose tackles that I mentioned, or like you said, Jadeveon or Myles Garrett screaming off the edge. I'm confident Myles Garrett will flirt with 20 sacks this year, and that's all a byproduct of Clowney and the strong interior that GM Andrew Berry and Joe Woods have cultivated.
All right, some of the things that didn't go as well for guys, biggest disappointments at camp, or guys who you think underperformed maybe.
Yeah, well, the first one would have to be Grant Delpit, and that's not a knock on him underperforming on the field. It's just his unavailability, right? And that is a theme among this safety room. You know, Ronnie Harrison was out for some time there as well. Grant's obviously being a more long-term injury, but both these are soft tissue injuries, hamstring issues that you just don't know if they're going to linger or if they're going to fully heal. So until you get, 4, 5, 6 games in a row out of these guys, I will continue to have that memory and training camp linger of their injuries. Another one has to be Tack McKinley. And I know I'm naming another guy who just wasn't on the field because he wasn't available, but there's a lot riding on that number 3 pass rusher. And I'll speak from the standpoint of a football coach. If you're not out there, you can't play. And there's going to be anxiety about what you know in the playbook and your conditioning. And are you going to be able to bring it in the fourth quarter? All those type of things I'm sure Tack can get set for and be ready to go for, but it doesn't change the fact that he wasn't out there at training camp. And then I'll end with this one. I thought Austin Hooper had a chance to grab the tight end 1 spot because David Njoku was pushing him towards the end of last year, and David just blew him away, quite frankly. And now that's not going to show up in the snap count, especially early in the year. We saw last night Hooper played 10 snaps, and I think Njoku was only at 4. They're going to give Hooper every chance to grab this tight end 1 spot. But David Njoku is the most athletic tight end on the roster. And Hooper didn't have a nice camp. He can change that real early by playing well, in Kansas City and then back at home for the home opener against the Texans and the Bears and then into Minnesota. It can be an easy September for him, and he can grab that spot back. But you just expect more from Hooper, a double-digit million guy who was once the highest-paid tight end for a couple of days there at least.
Yeah, he does. He has to step it up. I would agree. All right. Any areas of the roster you think Andrew Berry tries to upgrade in the next couple of days?
Right. So the lingering thing here is kicker. There's not an idea. We don't know what's going to happen there. Kevin Stefanski very non-committal after the game, so that seems to be like an obvious one. Other than that, this is not really a roster that is in the market for upgrading. They're going to be sellers or cutters, if you will, and teams are going to be picking up their guys. They've done a great job at loading this roster from front to back. You hope that now they just develop those guys. I could say some things about some offensive line backup question marks that I have, but they're not going to find external help in that way. Special teams is something we can keep talking about, but from all 22 spots and then the second and third teams on offense and defense, they're set. And then that's a testament to Andrew Berry.
Ellis Williams and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. On the other side of the break, we'll hear from Kevin Stefanski. We will also say some guys that could end up on the 53-man roster of other teams that the Browns cut. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. Sports4CLE continues. We continue talking Browns football with Ellis Williams, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer. Ellis, who are some guys who could end up either on injured reserve for the Browns? And keep in mind, if they put them on before the 53, they're done for the year. Is there anybody that you think they're toying with that, thinking about that with?
The one name that comes to mind is linebacker Jacob Phillips, of course, with his injury, his upper body injury that was tough to see. And because there's a lot of promise there, and he's a guy that they would never let get exposed to the waiver wire. So I think protecting him on IR that way. There's also some talks of what could happen again with special teams guys. But, Tony Fields is a guy that was practicing, and I thought that was another name to watch, considering what they spent on him in the draft. But he was back at practice. So that's a name that I don't think that would slide to IR. But Phillips is the one, again, two linebackers who the defense remains banged up. But that would be the one guy I would watch, and honestly, one thing I would expect.
Well, when you look at the last few guys on this roster, the 52, 53, there's going to be guys 54, 55, 56, 57 that will likely end up on other rosters. Do you agree?
Oh, I completely agree. And we can just start in the wide receiver room. We already mentioned JoJo Natson. It seems like now they'll keep Kadarius Hodge, but he was another one that if he were to depart, another team's going to grab him. I mean, you look at the Detroit Lions, a team with not a whole lot out there at wide receiver. The Browns have done a great job in grabbing depth. Curtis Weaver's another guy who will not be back, who could, he didn't look great yesterday in Atlanta, but pass rushing depth is always a necessity unless you're the Cleveland Browns in the situation. And he's someone someone could give another shot. Former 5th round pick from the Dolphins. Didn't really find his footing here, but he's still young. And again, it's a testament to what Andrew Berry has developed here in Cleveland that, these players are going to be picked up quickly.
Most important newcomers for the Browns. You can give me more. You can give me a couple if you want. Who is it? If the Browns are going to do what they want to do this year, which of the new guys need to be elite, if you will?
Yeah, to me, it's Jadeveon Clowney and John Johnson, and they have very different roles. I would say for Clowney, it's playing 13, 14 games and disrupting and dominating the 70% of those snaps that he's out there, forcing turnovers, wreaking havoc, ending a game, being that guy when everybody's tired, miles is doubled, you go out there and you strip sack that quarterback and end the potential game-winning drive. John Johnson just needs to play that assignment sound football he's always been doing. He's not a huge interceptor of the ball. He's not a fumble forcer. He's just a complete football player, and he'll go get the football. He's going to punch it out every once in a while. But he's just a steady force back there that really controls and dictates the pace of play and keeps quarterbacks guessing with his eyes and his ability to read the routes in front of him. He's going to be a guy that you just see around the football all the time when the ball's falling incomplete because the quarterback had to throw it where no one could get it, or John Johnson would be the guys to get it. They paid big money for John Johnson. They're rolling the dice with Jadeveon Clowney. But if they get 90% of the expectation from those guys, this Browns defense is going to be a top 5 unit. And we already know how I feel about the offense. This is top 5 already, flirting with top 3, and the potential to be the number 1 offense by October, November, when these games really start counting.
I know you got to go. Before you run, one last question. Position group that has to come through if the Browns are going to be successful, especially week 1.
You know what? This might be a little bit of a cop-out, but I'm going to say the kicking game. I mean, this is a team that is going to have a lot of games come down to last-minute kicks or narrow margins, and it's a huge question mark right now. For everything sorted out on this roster, I can promise you that they are going to be figuring out the kicking situation all week, and that's in the top of their priority list because, yes, Chase McLaughlin had his chance on Sunday, and I don't think it went all that well. And for a team with the stakes that are this high and the expectations match them, you got to have your kicking game figured out, or teams are going to know that you're scared to kick in moments when they really all could come down to that.
Ellis Williams, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Thanks so much. Appreciate you taking time. I know you're busy chasing down Browns cuts and the like. So, Ellis, thanks very much as always. Great stuff and appreciate the time.
Always a blast. Thanks, Dave.
All right, Ellis Williams. Make sure you read him in the pages of the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. Well, Kevin Stefanski did address the media and talked about one of the topics we've been talking about, potential trades with that back half of the roster because they can't keep as many talented players as they have. Here's what Kevin Stefanski said about the potential for trades on the back half of the Browns roster.
Andrew and his staff do a great job of working the roster for 365 days. I mean, they're constantly looking at ways to upgrade whether it's via trade or otherwise. So it's all part of it. I told the team last night, I would love to keep everybody. I wish they relaxed those rules and we could keep everybody, but that's not the nature of this beast.
And again, the Browns have a lot of good players, and that's a great problem to have. So we know of 4 players that have been cut so far: Kyle Lauletta, Sheldrick Redwine, Curtis Weaver, JoJo Natson. Browns have to get down to the 53-man roster limit by 4 o'clock tomorrow. That's when we will see you again. Scheduled guests: Jeff Phelps and Tim Bielek from cleveland.com and The Plain Dealer. Have a great night, everybody. We will see you again tomorrow at 4 here on Sports4CLE.